when to rotate certain players out, bring players in, and the level stays, not far short of what it is of the player that you take out, so you get the job done.
Exactly.
And that's going to be crucial if you want to fight on four fronts. If you want to go, win the Carabao Cup, if you want to have a long run in the FA Cup, if you want to go, to the Champions League final and also challenge in the Premier League, you've seen it. What Pep's done really well over the years is he's been able, because he's got quality in his squad, he's been always able to rotate with the wide players, the wingers. He's also been able to rotate in central midfield to keep Kevin De Bruyne fit, and also he rotates his centre halves. He's had defensive players, 2 for every position he can rotate there. So he's got now, in effect, I would say, what Pep has had at Man City for the last few years, when Man City were really at top of their game, when they had that really top squad. And he's got that now, Mikel. So I think the biggest challenge for him is to get that rotation right. Yeah. And if he gets that rotation right, there'll be, that should obviously reward him. If he doesn't get that rotation right, you could easily fall out of a cup or fall away in the league. So, but there will be no excuses to answer your question, DG. I think this year, if he doesn't win a trophy, I think that there will be serious questions asked. I know they're wielded to him at board level. The Americans love him and all the rest of it, the owners. But at the same time, if he doesn't deliver, there's going to be, with social media now, with the pressure of, he'll be reminded every day on Sky Sports of everyone goes on
in his press conferences as well when he's asked the same things. He's starting to have enough.
Exactly. He's got a fantastic record as an Arsenal manager. I think he's won more points in the last 3 years than any manager in the Premier League. But we haven't won anything.
I'm on to him more, Graham, about winning.
So it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, he's won 177 of his first 300 games, and he's up there with the likes of Fergie and Pep Guardiola and all the top managers. But they won trophies in their first 300 games. He's just won an FA Cup. So yes, surely sooner or later, a big club like Arsenal needs to be winning the trophies and the big trophies. And if he can't deliver it, they're always going to say he's a bridesmaid. He's taken us so far, but he's not going to get us over the line. So those sort of questions will be asked, DG, if he doesn't deliver this year. And now when he's got that squad that we know now is a top squad, and he can rotate 2 players for every position, the quality and the depth of the squad now, and it did get him through the early games, didn't it? Because when we had the injury to Saka, Madueke shone in his position, and the depth that he brought in at the start of the season, when we had Odegaard's injury, he could rotate. So, and we haven't missed those players. So basically, he's got now the tools, I think, to deliver. And if he doesn't deliver, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on whether he should retain his job. It's ridiculous. We had this on Potsy's show the other night. Basically, some guy put in the chat, why are you Arsenal fans debating Arteta? He's top of the league. He is top of the league. But at the same time, we've been here before as Arsenal fans, haven't we? So it's something that I think he's going to need to get right this year. And I think he's going to need to deliver a trophy. And I think there will be no excuse if he doesn't.
That's where I'm at, Graham, because for me, I rate Arteta. I think the statistics, like you alluded to, there's always statistics, more points than the Invincibles. At one point, we only had a couple of losses in a calendar year. Everything reflects that the manager is a very good manager. Like, we are closer to getting over the line than going backwards. Like, we're in the Champions League. As a man that's been in the Champions League, this will be his 3rd year as a manager. He's got quarters and semis. As you said, we've got the depth. I think it's realistic to expect or ask us to get over the line. If I didn't rate him and I didn't think he's capable, I wouldn't say it. But you've started to make me kind of dream. And for me, I think you're a good manager. I think we've got a good team. But to be a great, it's either, like you're saying, you need to win a champs, you need to win a Premier, you need to put yourself in history. And for me, the one criticism, the major criticism I would say of Mikel Arteta, I admire him so much. He's shown big balls to take this job with hardly any experience. Of course, he's made mistakes. But the one thing I would say as a club, especially like in the last 3 years, excluding this year, would be 4. We haven't seized the present, and I think sometimes football is about seizing the present moment. And I feel it's actually a shame that we haven't won a league or 2 in the last 3 years, or some League Cups. Like, we've had some good nights out, don't get it twisted, but we haven't done anything. And like what you said there, when Berta's come in, he's done well. We actually rate our squad individually and collectively. I don't think there's any excuses. I personally don't feel he'll get sacked if he doesn't win silverware, because of what you kind of said. Like, there's a lot of admiration from internally. And I just think our football club has shown that regardless of what us fans think, they won't actually do certain things. Whether it was January, we all wanted signings, we never got that. A lot of people didn't want Arteta from the jump. A lot of people wanted Wenger gone for years. So it'll be interesting. But you know, there is a team I forgot to ask you where we're talking about the league, yeah, and really I only thought of it when you mentioned Manchester City in the depth. Like, where do you look at with Manchester City? Because they're kind of going under the radar. Like, they're seen as being in the title race, but it's mainly just us and Liverpool. Like, where do you see City in this all?
It's strange, isn't it? Because I watch Man City, and they've over the years, Man City won Premier Leagues without a striker. They literally, he had false nines, didn't he? He redefined how to win league titles, Pep, with quality midfield and wide players and no striker. And now, when I watch them now, the team is just set up for Erling Haaland, isn't it? The whole team is about Erling Haaland. So if Erling Haaland stays fit for the season, and they continue to play the way they are, and they're looking to play to his strengths, if he continues to deliver, they'll be there or thereabouts, won't they? Because basically, you've seen already, the last few weeks, he's looked absolutely phenomenal. They started to get on a run again. I don't think they've got the quality in the team, even in the squad, that they had when they were winning Premier Leagues. I think he's rebuilding it. Yeah, the defensively they're not so strong. And Donnarumma has added something. I do think when they get the spine of their team out, you know, if you had a spine of your team, Donnarumma, Rodri, and Haaland, that's a pretty strong spine, isn't it? One of those centre halves like Diaz, who's a quality centre half. If you had those four players, they stay fit. I think Phil Foden is not the player he was a few years ago. Doesn't seem to be the same level for me. I know he's still a good footballer. I'm not saying he's not. They've had one or two injuries to the players he's brought in, like Mamouche and Cherki. I think Reinders is a good player. I think, I don't think they got the same quality in the wide areas, albeit Doku is a good winger and Savinho's as flashes. They haven't got the quality they had in the wide areas anymore. I think defensively, in the fullback areas, I don't think they're like Liverpool. I don't think they're strong in those areas like we are, for example. Yeah, so I still think that they're going to be there and thereabouts, you know, because I think he's got a squad when they're all fit, he can rotate. Whereas I don't think Liverpool have got so many rotational options as he's got. I just feel that. I just think Liverpool have got better players than Man City. So I still think it's good between Arsenal and Liverpool, but I think Man City will be there or thereabouts. If both Liverpool and Man City were not to be at the level that they could be, Man City could take an advantage because particularly if Haaland continues in the form he's in, he's a phenomenal striker. But I think for me, it's between Liverpool and Arsenal for the title this year. But I wouldn't rule Man City out. But I think they are at the moment the third best team, in my opinion. Some people might think different, but I haven't seen them. They struggled at the start of the season. They lost against Spurs.
They were fortunate to beat Brentford.
They lost against Brighton.
Haaland made something happen, and they just got it.
I thought they, I watched them against Brentford last week, and I know they were in control of that game, but they never looked like putting it to bed. The old Man City would have been ruthless. Would have taken them for 3 or 4. And against us, you saw how much respect they had for us. That literally, he took all these attacking players off, and they were scared of us. And they literally sat back in a 5-4-1. I can't believe a Pep team.
We're the only team that defends.
Yeah. So, but that Crazy. Showed me that to me showed where we are compared to them. So, I do think that I'm not saying they're not out of it. I do think it'd be one of those 3 teams, but I think that if you had to pin me down, which would be the 2 fighting it out, I would say us and Liverpool.
I'm with you with that. I think I'd still have Liverpool as the favourites because I give them the fact that they've won it. I am quite bullish about our chances, but it is early doors, and it's more for me. I think the biggest advantage we have is simply put we should be hungrier than the other teams because they've actually done it, and obviously we've got more players. Like, God forbid, I'll never wish injuries on players, but couple injuries, especially to that back line at Liverpool, marred with teething problems, that could come back to bite them. City have looked the most. I used to think City were invincible, Graham, and now they look the most kind of mortal or human, if that kind of makes sense. And I think you touched on it. The one thing I'll give City, you've got Haaland, potentially one of the best players in the league, and football is decided at both ends. You have got Donnarumma who can bail you out of trouble. You have got Haaland. But then I look at their defense, I look at their midfield. They can be got at, and tactically, any competent manager, like whether it's Arteta or whatever, you can kind of stifle that. And then, as you said, you're kind of relying on young quote unquote young temperamental wingers like Doku and Silvinho. So I think we've got a chance, but I do think they're going about their business kind of calmly. So then that leads me to ask you, yeah, and it's early doors, but what do you make of our Champions League chances? Because I'd rather win the champs than the Prem, admittedly, but I think we've got more of a chance of winning the Prem. Like I can see a reality we win the Prem. I think champs is a bit. I need the stars to align, if that makes sense, Graham.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we've got more chance of winning the Prem because I just think cup football is cup football. You can be brilliant in cup football, but if you have an off day in a cup cup game, you're out basically. So I think we'll qualify in the top 8. I think we're one of the favourites for winning it, and I think we've got a great chance. But we never won the Champions League, and I know we haven't won the Premier League for a while either. But we've never won the Champions League. I do think we're more set up to win the Premier League because over a longer period of time, I just think with the squad we got, I do think we can do that with that squad. Whereas in the Champions League, I think as good as we are, if we just have one day, if we don't turn up in a game or one team just suddenly has a great day against us, it could end just like that. I'm a lot older than you, so I can think back to 2003-04 when I thought we were the best team in Europe at that time. We were invincible that season, and we went to Stamford Bridge in the quarterfinals, and we drew with Chelsea 1-1, and we came back we'd beaten Chelsea in every game that season, and they turned us over in the second leg 2-1 at Highbury, and then in the semi-final they played.
Time I cried over football that game. Or that leg.
Yeah, I think they then played Monaco in the semi-final. We beat them, and then the final was between Monaco and Porto. And I thought, we'd never have a better chance of winning the Champions League. We did that year. If we'd beaten Chelsea, we'd have played Monaco in the semi and Porto in the final. Mourinho's Porto. I still think we'd have beaten them with the team we had, but we just didn't turn up in that second game. So that's the problem with the Champions League. I think we're capable of winning it. I think we're up there with the likes of PSG, Real Madrid. I do think that we've got a good team when we put our first 11 out. Obviously, they've got more. They've got more stardust. I think PSG, Real Madrid have got more stardust with like Bellingham and Mbappe. But I just think, but then we beat them last year, didn't we, over 2 legs? So PSG, I didn't think we turned up in the first game at the Emirates, and we conceded an early goal, and
that's where the depth comes in. Because we had injuries for that game,
and I think we missed Partey, didn't we, in that game? A massive loss. He got suspended, didn't he, in the game before? So I do think that I would love to win the Champions League. Like you, I'd love to win the Champions League. I've seen us win 6 league titles since I've been following Arsenal. I've never seen us win the Champions League, so I'd like to see that. I'd love to see that. So I think we've got a great chance. I just think out of the two, I just think we're better suited to win the Premier League.
You said it there in that. We've got a good chance of winning the Premier League. I just wanted to ask you, because obviously you've been on the block for a lot longer than me, but I think Arsenal fans, obviously some younger than me, people like myself that are in our 30s, or people like yourselves in their 60s, like I think every Arsenal fan can probably say that, Europe has been filled with more nightmares than like tears of joy. Like, why do you think as a football club, we've just never done it in Europe in any competition, really and truly? We've just never had that kind of pedigree, or we've just not, I don't want to say we ain't been serious, but yeah, we just ain't done it. We ain't done it in Europe.
I wish I knew the answer to that. But our European record is appalling. The first year I was following the team, my dad used to take me to games. We won the old Fairs Cup, which is now like the Europa League, I suppose. Now you could argue, but it was like the Fairs Cup. We won that year, and then the next, I was at the final when we won in Copenhagen, and we beat Parma in the Cup Winners' Cup in '94. They're the only 2 European.
Europe.
I don't remember. I wasn't going. I was going to games in 1970, but I don't remember us winning that final. We didn't go to. It was 2 legs. The final. The second leg was at Highbury. We were 3-1 down from the first leg, and we won the second leg 3-0. I just do not remember that game. I was about 8 or 9 years old. But obviously, I went to the Cup Winners' Cup final against Parma, who had the likes of Zola and Brolin. They were a top team then. They were, and Alan Smith scored the winner. And it was like we didn't have Ian Wright in that final. He was suspended, and we defended really well to get a 1-0. It was like the old 1-0 to the Arsenal job. But I've seen us lose games in Europe, finals in Europe we should have won, like the game against Real Zaragoza when Naeem scored from the halfway line. That's the only thing that Tottenham fans had over us for fucking years, wasn't it? Basically, one of their ex-players scored against us in the final. I don't know why we've been so poor in Europe, DG. I really can't answer it. We've just lost the teams that we should have beaten simply because it's a cup game and we just haven't played to our ability in those games, I think. Liverpool in Europe have always had that Anfield factor, sort of like, I take that like, I'm not saying we'd never recreated the atmosphere at Highbury because I've been to some European nights at Highbury where we did recreate the atmosphere, but I think Liverpool, if you think back to Liverpool, they've won Champions Leagues and they've won European Cups because Anfield on a Wednesday night, that pitch
Magical.
Crowd close to the players, the atmosphere, I think at Anfield, and I've been to Anfield, is as good as anywhere, any football stadium. I know you could argue there are times when it's flat, when they're playing lesser teams, but on a big European night, I'm not saying I've been to them, but I've heard of what it's like at European nights. Liverpool fans I know go to those games. It's something special apparently, and I think that helps the team. I don't think we're able to recreate what they have, for example, on European nights, and that's no excuse really. Because if you've got good players, you've got good teams, they should still deliver. But they haven't been able to do it. So in answer to your question, I've absolutely no idea. We've had great opportunities. We had that great run to the Champions League final, and then obviously Lehmann got sent off. And although we took the lead, we were defending a 1-0. I think we've had a few things go against us in games, maybe, but I'll be churlish to say that's the reason we haven't won it. I just don't think we've been good enough at the end of the day. Let's be honest about it. And I'll come back to it. We've had good teams, not good enough to win the Champions League. I've seen a lot of teams who are not the best teams in Europe win the Champions League, like Chelsea. They've won two Champions Leagues. They've never been good enough to. I mean, even Ange Postecoglou won a European trophy last year. So it's weird, isn't it? How it works out. But in answer to your question, we should have been doing better in Europe than we have, and it would be nice this year if we did win that to finally put that bogey to bed, wouldn't it? That basically we finally won a Champions League and we showed what we're all about as a European. We have got European pedigree because we are. Let's face it, we are. For me, we are in the up there with the best teams in England. I always think of Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal as being the three teams that people associate, the big three in England, and we're well respected in Europe. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be winning European trophies.
You just don't have the CV or the cabinet to match, and it upsets
we haven't. No. It's like a Tottenham trophy cabinet. It's a Tottenham trophy cabinet in Europe, isn't it?
Exactly, and it was humble pie because they won and won in Europe as well. Like,
I know. What a bad night that was, mate. Don't remind me.
that whole May period was horrible because it felt like everybody. Not that we've been on a trophy drought as long as these other clubs, but it just felt like the year of the underdogs. Like even some countries, can't remember off the top of my head, but there were some teams and countries that haven't won in a gazillion years. They seem to be winning. And then over here, obviously, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Spurs. I think Spurs is the one that kind of tipped everybody over the edge if they weren't there already. I think I've made peace with the Champions League in that I think we'll have to be perfect. Like, I think we'll have to have the best, not necessarily the best players, but the best team, best tactics. Everything has to go to plan. Purely because the last two times I've seen Chelsea win it, it's been slimy. The way Man United won it the two times in my life was slimy. I've seen Liverpool come back from 3 goals down. I just don't think we're going to get that luck.
Yeah, I think you need a bit of luck. You need luck in it. Whereas the team that wins the league is always the best team in the league because over 38 games you have to be the best game. In Europe, it's all about who. Not only do you have to be good, you have to get the right. Sometimes if you get the right draw, it helps, and it teams get to finals in domestic cups, for example, play all their games at home and get to a final. There's lots of things, and if you have easy draws, if you draw, there's lots of factors. So. That's no excuse though, because when you're in Europe every year, albeit we weren't in Europe for a lot of those years, there's no reason why you shouldn't be challenging and winning European trophies. So it's still not good enough to only win 2 trophies in my lifetime, which is 60 odd years, to only win 2 European trophies. Where a club as big as Arsenal, despite all those factors you need to win it, that's still not good enough when you see other teams winning it the amount of times they do. But as I said, sometimes the best teams in England, they're not even the best teams in England. They've been winning European trophies. So it's just one of those things, unfortunately. But it will be nice to win it. So we haven't got to keep saying what we're saying today.
Champions of Europe, you'll never sing that chant annoys me. I've seen my team get to 2 finals as an adult, and obviously like 06, I can't ask anything more. That it was courageous, but it was disappointing. Honestly, I think the Europa League final against Chelsea was absolutely abysmal and embarrassing, and everyone should hang their heads in shame. You can't lose a final 4-1, but there's no point going over old wounds. This is a good question, though. Like, it's kind of, well, we're not City fans, but this guy said Pep might just prioritize the Champions League at some stage. Do you think that could happen? Because if he looks at it and say, "Oh, Liverpool and Arsenal are better than me, we might go as far as we can. We'll try, but we might have more of a chance of the champs." Like you said, it's a cup, and he's won it several times. Like, do you think that could be a factor?
He could do. It depends where they're going in the league, of course. If they're right out of, if they're not in contention in the league, say they were to fall away towards obviously the knockout stages of the Champions League start towards the back end of the season, don't they? After February, March, around then. So you're working up towards that final in May. And if you're falling away in the league, you've got no chance of winning the league, albeit you obviously want to make sure you're at least in the European places for next season. And your best chance of winning a trophy is the Champions League. You're going to prioritise that. But again, he's got a really strong squad, Pep. He's got a big squad. Whether it's the same quality that he's had in the past, I would question. But he still has got. He can rotate, for example, as same as Arteta can rotate. Certain players. So when he gets Mamouche, Shirky back, he can rotate Foden out when he wants for Shirky. When he gets Mamouche back, and he gets. I'm just trying to think who else he's got out at the moment, but he can rotate in the wide areas. He's already doing that, of course, because Doku didn't play last weekend. So, but if he gets to the stage where it looks likely that they're more likely to win a Champions League than the league, and he's safe with his European position, I think, why would you not want to prioritise winning the Champions League if that's the thing that you want? Because you can't win the Premier League, and that's, they're the two main trophies. So yeah, you would. I think any club would, though, wouldn't they? Any club would.
I don't disagree with
the only thing you've got to do is keep players match fit, haven't you? You've just got to make sure that those players are match sharp. So you can give them a rest when you need to, but you've still got to make sure that they're match sharp. So it's no good just sort of thinking, I'm going to prioritise the Champions League now. I'm going to rest Haaland for all these league games, because he's not playing enough games.
You're not going to
when he plays his Champions League game, he's not going to be sharp, is he? So he will have to play games. But if you want to give him a game off there now and then, because you're not likely to win the league, and you've got an opponent who you're probably going to beat without him, you're going to do that. So yeah, I think, in answer to your question, yeah, he could do that in some form, in some way, but he's still got to keep players fit and that's the reason why managers do carry on playing players a lot of the time. They don't want them not to be match fit for the big games, because they need them to be in that rhythm, don't they? Week in, week out. You give them the odd break because what they do is sports science now, DG. They look at their numbers. They're looking at numbers all the time. How many minutes they've played, how many sprints they've made.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're looking at all this data. Then you're deciding whether that player can have a break. And I think that's what they take into account.
So then flip that to Arsenal. Then it's like, how does Arteta find the balance? Because sometimes I think I'm a bit weird, because I do think some of our fans, they do too much. Oh, this one needs to be rested. I don't think you can get consistency without playing these players. Equally, though, I do hear the fans and understand there is occasions to rest Bukayo or this one or that one. Like, if there's anyone that I'm angry at through our centre-backs being injured last season, it was Arteta, because didn't we beat PSV like 7-1 or something? My centre-halves are still out there. But how does he find that balance? Because as you said, like, you've got to find that balance of, resting them when they need to be rested, but also playing them so they don't look a bit rusty. Like, obviously, it's above our pay grade. We're not managers, but like, how does he find that? Because even with the fixture list, like, where's the rest coming from? Because even someone like Brighton in the League Cup, you would think that would be the case, but you might need to play a strong team, maybe potentially your biggest, strongest team. I can only see Slavia Prague, but where are you at with that?
Well, I think first of all, I think he'll be silly not to learn from last season where he overplayed certain 100%. Players. I think he had to last year. He had to overplay certain players, because we had players. And the other thing I think another key part of the season will be getting that discipline into the team. So, like, if you remember last year, we kept getting players sent off, didn't we, at the start of the season? And some of them were very unjust.
You think back to the being at the ground with the Rice one against Brighton.
Yeah, I mean the Rice one. I was in the ground like you. I couldn't fucking believe that. Excuse my language. I couldn't believe it. And then the Trossard one. That was crazy. They even stopped doing that towards the end of the season. They stopped sending people off who were preventing the restart of a quick free kick, and even that day they weren't going to get a quick restart because the player was laying on the ground. So I think discipline's important. So then you don't have to keep overplaying players because people are getting bans when they can't play for 2 or 3 games. That's important. I think he would have learned, obviously, that maybe his best, what he would consider his real best players, he can't overplay them. Like Saka, like he doesn't need to play 75, 80 minutes, 85 minutes. If we're 2 up in a game after 65 minutes, he can bring Mandwaki on, if he's fit. Well, he's not fit at the moment. So there's the areas I think and answer your question, when you start talking about rotating, I'm not saying he rotates the players out so they don't start the game. They could start the game, but he could decide to take them off earlier once the game, once 60, 65 minutes, And I noticed he's already doing that with Calafiori. So like Calafiori, who now has edged ahead of Lewis Skelly in the pecking order for that left back spot, because he's had a few injury problems in the past, he recognises that maybe, do you know what, 60, 65 minutes, Lewis Skelly's perfectly good footballer. I'll take Calafiori out of the action, not just to rest him up. He's done his job. Bring Lewis Skelly on, give him 25, 30 minutes. And I think that's what he can do now. He can do that in other positions. If he wanted to, he could take Odegaard off and move Eze central. If he wanted to, he could take Saka off for 65 minutes and bring on Madueke. If he wanted to, he could now. If you look at the quality we now got in the centre-half positions, I mean, Mosquera has come in. I know he made the error at Newcastle, but he seamlessly fitted into that back four. He could replace Saliba and Gabriel for the last 25 minutes of the game.
We still got White as well.
Exactly, and Hincapié, he's a great footballer. So he's got those sort of options now, where even if he's not rotating from in terms of changing the 11, if he wants to, he can take 2 or 3 players out of the action after 65 minutes if we're in control of a game and bring other people on. So I think that's one thing I hope he's learned. I think also there will be games where people need to be rested. I think that Brighton game, I know we want to win that Carabao Cup. It'd be nice to win it, but I do think he's going to change it up a bit with maybe, you could.
That's where you wanted Madueke, like that game.
Yeah. If he was fit, you could have a. Yeah. I was thinking the other day. I was saying to Potsy, basically, I know they're not fit at the moment, but you could have a front line of Madueke, Havertz, and one of Trossard and Martinelli, and you give Saka a rest, you give Gokkeris a rest. He could play Marino and Wanyeri in midfield. He could give Norvard a game, and he can change the whole back four. He could have White, if they're all fit, he could have White, Hincapié, Mosquera, and Lewis Skelly, couldn't he? And Kepa in goal. So, and to me, that's a good, strong side. And he could have,
as a second choice.
Yeah, he's a decent one. He could have somebody like Gokkeris or Saka on the bench if we need, if it's 1-1 in that last half hour, we need something extra. That's the way he could rotate and use the squad this season. So, yeah, I think he would have learnt that. I hope he has. And I think he is saying himself that possibly some of the River early in the season where people were saying he had the handbrake on, it was more a case he was rotating in certain areas that didn't quite give him the same as he had. Exactly. Yeah.
I think you're bang on. I got to ask you as well, because we've given Arteta his fair praise, and obviously his criticisms were due. You can't criticize Berta at all. The only thing I would say, not even a criticism, is I would have liked nine players instead of 8, because I still think we've missed a trick with left wing, but we'll get on to that. And we ain't really changed our reputation in terms of sales, but cool, Berta's doing his thing. Arteta, you've got all the tools. The Cronkies, because how do you feel about the Cronkies? Because obviously everyone's been onto them. We're not quite at the Cronky out stage, and I know they might not be the best owners, but when I personally feel, Graham, when I look at them as much as I can, from what I read and see, they put people in positions in it, and just leave them to do what they're doing. So I've accepted that. I think they've backed Arteta from the beginning, but then you've brought in a competent Berta, and then obviously you've got 8 players now. And to be fair, you lot backed Arteta when he didn't have a CV, and we're in these conversations. So I can't really poke fun at you or do the whole KSC out thing. But how do you look at the owners? There's even talk about upgrading the stadium as well.
Yeah. I think you just nailed it there in one of the things you said. You said they backed Arteta from the beginning. And I think they have. I think they have backed Arteta right from the start. They've given him money all the way through his tenure, and also the other good thing, the thing you said I agree with, is you said they put people in place and allowed them to get on with it, and they have, and they put Berta in place, and that has worked.
Changed as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they've done. I don't think you can criticise the owners at the moment. I think they've done what you'd expect, and so I don't think that we can really criticise them in any way. They've backed the manager. They've put people in place that have and paid the money to get good people in quality positions to help the manager. And the board, the backroom staff he's got set up now, the sporting director, the coaches, the set piece coach, everything we've got is because they've been willing to invest into the club, and I think they have done that, and I think they have backed him. I mean, in the past, we didn't have that backing. Emery never had that backing. He was like buying players off the back of fag packets almost, you know, and basically even Wenger. Of course, we knew about the stadium. When we moved to that new stadium, we had to take a hit. We couldn't keep our best players. We couldn't buy the best players, and we went through that. But I think things have now changed at Arsenal since Arteta come in, and I think that he's now had that backing, and now with the stadium move as well, that's the next part that they're looking at. So you could argue, you can't really argue they're not backing him. I think they backed him from day one, and that's why I think that they are not going to get rid of him. You know, I think even if he was, unless he was going to have a complete disastrous season,
exactly.
You know, then you have no excuse. But if he keeps, I don't think we're going to have that, you know, and that's what I was trying to say to Potsy the other night. I think we've got a really good bunch of players now that we're always going to be challenging. So at the end of the day, this was an interesting scenario. I said this to Potsy, right, and I'm not saying, and some guy pulled me up in the comments on Potsy's video, saying, you know, sort of criticised that I was up Arteta's arse, which I wasn't. You know, at the end of the day,
you're not allowed to praise Arteta.
No, you're not. But the point I was making is, imagine, right? I'll ask you this question, right?
Go ahead.
We go into that last game of the season against Crystal Palace. The last game in the Premier League season is Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. We need a point to win, right? To win the league, like Liverpool. So just a point. Don't matter what Liverpool do, as long as we get a point, we win the league. It's 1-1. It's in the 96th minute, 6 minute of injury time of 7 minutes. Dockeries goes round the goalkeeper, who pulls him down. The referee gives a penalty on field. He's then sent to the video screen by PGMOL Stockley Park, and basically they overturn it, and it's no penalty. That costs Arteta the league. Would you sack him then?
I think first we need to riot outside Stockley Park, because that would be the short.
Well, that's the answer. We need to be, and that's the point, isn't it? Because basically we need to be in a position now. We don't have to rely on PGMOL or these borderline decisions. Because football is definitely a game of fine margins at times, you know. But basically, I'm saying that I think decisions sometimes, if he has something go majorly wrong where it's out of his control, there's an argument for him, isn't there, that's saying that he would have won the league but for that. You could argue at the same time, maybe if he'd managed the team better during the season, we wouldn't be going into the last game needing a point. So there's that.
That's what I was going to say, Graham. That's what I was
that's it. It's an interesting debate, isn't it? But I think we're going to be there and thereabouts. I do think he's going to win a title. If he doesn't do it this year, I hate to say next year because I'm starting to sound like fucking Patrick Eze, you know, Netflix FC. So I better not say that. But you know what I'm saying. I do think he's going to get there, mate. I do think he's going to get there, and I do think it's going to be this year. I'm the most positive I've been for a while, DG. Same. I don't know about you. I am positive, you know, and that's why
I think we've
I just don't want to see this negativity. I just want us to be, as a fan base, I want us to be really positive. When I'm in that stadium, I'm really invested more in well, not that I've never invested, because you know I'm like a young kid when I'm in that stadium. You know, I love looking at the tactics of games. But when I'm in that stadium, I'm a fan like everybody else, screaming at the fucking referee. I'm screaming at the players when they make a bad pass. I just want us to win those games, you know. But I'm totally invested, and basically I do think I like what I see most times, more often than not. So, and I do think we've got the quality there to do it. And so. I've lost track of your question now. What was it?
No, you asked me a question.
I'm going off on a tangent here, aren't I?
No, that's why you're here. I took it left because I started saying anything. But going back to what you said, yeah, on one hand, I would be like, all right, cool. You know what? The penalty went against us, blah, blah, blah. We have to keep you. But I do, you know me, I'm like yourself. We like to talk about the little talking points and the nuances and fine tune everything. But I must admit, on one hand, I'd cut him a luxury. On another hand, my immediate thought would be like, you know what? Bottom line, you finished second, didn't it? Like, bottom line, you have not got over the line.
Yeah.
I know it's harsh, but like, you've done well for us. We need to get over the line, and you might just be the man before the man, really. Like, obviously, I want everyone to be here, but at the same time, you might not be the guy that necessarily gets to pick the fruit from the tree that you obviously planted, didn't it? Really, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Do you think if he goes? Imagine we don't get over this line this year and he goes. Would you be worried that you say we've got the players there? Would you be confident they'd all stay? If a new manager come in, would he not want to change that squad? With certain players who probably been loyal to Arteta start looking, if he's gone, I might be thinking of going. Do you think that that's a danger? I don't know what you're thinking. You know, they always say sometimes this argument about be careful what you wish for. But I do think sometimes in the past there's been managers out there who, when Wenger stayed too long, didn't he? We could have got a Klopp, couldn't we? We could have Pep or Klopp. When you think about it, what we could have had. So there is that argument. I get that. There is that argument. I do think if he don't get over the line this year, he'd be seen as almost like the perennial bridesmaid. So I do think he has to do that.
That's why I need him to pick up some domestic trophies at the very minimum. If you can't win, obviously we want the Prem, we want the champs, but I genuinely feel, since we won the FA Cup, had you have won an FA Cup here, League Cup here, maybe a one Prem, I'm not going to say there wouldn't be pressure because this is Arsenal Football Club, isn't it? But there would be less pressure. And to go back to what you said, all of that is facts, really. Again, I think a lot of people that want a new manager, I'm exaggerating, but if you want a new manager, you have to accept that new manager has to be able to tear up everything. You might see Declan Rice, he's not in favor anymore. Your favorite young players gone and things like that. But that's where I'm kind of at in that. When you look at the journey we've been on, if we won a Premier League, I'd be happy and excited. But the first people I would kind of hail up, Graham, it would be actually the Zinchenkos, the Jesuses, the Ramsdales, the Tomiyasus, the people that were kind of like the four founders before we got here. So like, not everyone can be part of the journey, and sometimes that might not be the gaffer. I want it to be Arteta because I like him. I actually think you won't be out of a job long. If you was to leave Arsenal, you're not going to, you would be someone that gets phone calls. I'm not saying you get the jobs and whatnot, but I do think, for me, I always have to remember, as much as I have admiration for Arteta, I'm an Arsenal fan, and this isn't just happy-go-lucky. Like, as much as you're doing us a favour, we're doing you one. As I said earlier, I admire you for taking this job because you never had a CV and whatnot, but this is Arsenal Football Club, and you've made me start to believe it's not